Another great hymnal that was written many, many years ago and can be found in one of the old church hymnals. A beautiful song that really ministers to us if we will let it. You know, I love the old hymnals. And I didn't spend a tremendous amount of time in church growing up, but when the Lord saved me and redeemed me and set me free from my sins, and when I first started going to a Protestant church and listened to the people as they would pick up a hymnal and they would open it up and they would start to sing, there was just something about that just touched me. Even when I was an unsaved person going to a church like that, there was something about the songs that I believe that have been anointed by God to be written, to be sweet sounding in God's ears. And when we sing songs, it's a form of worship and praise. And I can tell you folks this morning that when I came down to do my normal morning Bible reading, studying, and praying time, I always come down with a coffee cup. And I walk through the door, I come down, I set it on a little warming plate, and then I pray and I have communion with God. And then I open up the scriptures. But this morning, as soon as I opened up the door, I felt the presence of the Lord in such a overwhelming way that I immediately had to rush and put my coffee cup down. And I started to pray for a brother that's going through a very difficult time. As a matter of fact, he's been given a very bad report from the doctors. In the world's eyes, it would be very grim. But he has the greatest attitude, he has the greatest love for God, and he's trusting God. And I want to build off of that and his trust for the Lord with this short message that I would like to share with you. As a Christian, when we give our heart, when we surrender our heart to God and say, God, forgive me for my sins, the way I've lived my life in rebellion against you, but today I'm going to surrender, I'm going to give it all to you, and I'm going to trust you. There's just something about when you do that, there's a sense of peace that comes into your heart, that you don't fear all these other things that everyone else fears and gets depressed about, like the coronavirus. There's a lot of people that are depressed, and there have been a lot of suicides because of this. But when you trust Christ, He gives you peace in your heart, that you can wake up every day knowing that He's in complete control of your life and that you can trust Him. No matter what happens, no matter what kind of turbulence, tragedy, disasters, bad report that a doctor may give you, we trust God, and we are in His hands, very capable hands. And I want to share a story with you. You hear the song playing in the background, "It Is Well With My Soul." Do you know that the gentleman that wrote this, his name was Horatio Spafford, and he was a very wealthy man. He was a lawyer in Chicago, and he invested a lot of his money into real estate, bought up a lot of buildings in Chicago. And he lived in the 1800s, and back in 1871, there was a great fire in Chicago and destroyed much of the city, killed a lot of people. Well, Horatio lost all of the real estate, all the investments that he had. So it pretty much financially almost completely ruined him. So Horatio was a Christian, and he trusted God. And very shortly after that particular incident happened in Chicago, him and his wife, Anna, they had 5 children. 1 boy, 4 girls. And it just so happened that there was an outbreak of scarlet fever that swept through the Chicago area, swept through much of the country back then. And unfortunately, their 4-year-old son had succumbed to scarlet fever and passed away. And then shortly after that, I think from all of the discouragement, the stress that would come from losing the child, Horatio decided with his wife Anna that they would take some time. They would go to Europe and they would go see their friends. Horatio was a close friend to one of the greatest evangelists that ever lived, great soul winner, D.L. Moody, and the great songwriter Ira Shankly also traveled with D.L. Moody. And they decided to go because D.L. Moody had been invited to come to Europe, and they wanted to go see D.L. Moody preaching in Europe, and then they would go on vacation somewhere in Europe. And when they got to New York to put his family on the boat, he got an urgent message that he was needed back in Chicago on business, and he could not travel with them at that time to Europe. So what had happened was he went on the boat with them and went to the room that they were assigned, and he had a very uneasy feeling. So he talked to the captain and had them move to a different part of the ship, and that's where that was where their cabin was. And they set off for sail. He kissed his wife and his family goodbye, and the ship set out for sail. It was a French luxury liner, very nice ship. It set on course to Europe. And Horatio went back about his business. Well, a couple of days later, on the way to Europe, they were going through very icy waters, and another ship had collided with the ship that they were on. It put a huge hole in the ship, and the water started to come in and flooded the ship. The ship went down pretty quickly, and unfortunately, all 4 of his daughters, Maggie, Teneda, Anna, and Bessie, were all lost at sea. His wife, Anna, had held on to some debris, and she was rescued along with 47 others, but 227 other people perished that day in the icy oceans of the Atlantic. Horatio got the message. He immediately got on the first ship he could and sailed to Europe, where they took his wife. And the captain had told him that they were about to go over the very area where his 4 daughters had perished. Heartbroken, he went back to his room and he could not go to sleep. And while he was sitting there on his bed, thinking about everything that took place, the words that came to his mind were, "It is well. God's will be done." And sometime after that is when he wrote the famous song, "It is well with my soul. It is well with my soul." So my question is, friends, for you today, is it well with your soul? Are you where you need to be with God? Is your relationship where it needs to be? Can you honestly say if you would have died today or something else was going to happen, is everything well with your soul? If you can't say that, then I implore you now to reach out, to just ask God to forgive you for everything, any sins that you've ever committed, and ask Jesus to come into your heart and let him reside there now, and he will do so. You don't want to go into eternity without knowing Christ. Is it well with your soul? Is what I would ask you today, and I pray that it is. It is well with my soul. And I can tell you that today, when I came down here and I prayed, God flooded my soul, and I wept and I prayed. I prayed for my brother that's going through a very difficult time, and I prayed in English, I prayed in the Spirit, and I just called out to God for many other people that I know that are going through difficult times, and I just sensed in my spirit and my heart that God was going to do something miraculous, because all the people I pray for, they trust God, and they can honestly say, it is well with my soul. Friends, I pray that it is well with your soul. In Jesus' name I pray, it is well with your soul. God bless you.